content.
Oh my god, we did it almost exactly the same.
Hi, I'm Chris.
Hey guys, I'm Robert.
And we're the Film Flammers.
Today we're bringing you some bonus content. We're going to give you the top 10 horror movie remakes. With so many things coming around the corner, like the new Halloween and the new Suspiria, we thought it was the best time to really deep dive into the movies that could have been better than the original,
but just weren't.
Or just missed the mark.
Some of them were actually better.
Yeah, I mean, it happens. It can happen.
Well, let's start with number 10.
Chris, what's your number 10?
Halloween.
Halloween. Are you talking about the Rob Zombie Halloween movie?
Yes, and I want to say it wasn't better film by any means. It was not a better film entertainingly or narratively, but it was more disturbing to me. And it wasn't the murders or anything else in this movie. It was actually a well-made movie. It was certainly well acted. However, what disturbed me the most was just like the beginning, where it's just like you see the interaction of the family, like around the breakfast table and just in their house together. It was just so disturbing to me to see how... Is it Jason Voorhees? No,
it's Michael Myers.
Michael. Well, I need to get my card taken from me now.
Well, my number 10 movie, since you said that, is Friday the 13th.
Yes.
And I mean, if you want to talk about like the backstory in Halloween remake really made it scary, Friday the 13th didn't need any backstory. What this remake did was go back to the past, the first like 1, 2, 3 movies, and combine the best elements of what made Friday the 13th what it is. From Jason's mother being the original killer, to Jason not even having a hockey mask and finding it in subsequent movies. And they put it all into one glorious, very violent movie.
Yeah. Now, would you recommend this remake to watch? Obviously, it's in your top 10, but there's not an unlimited number of remakes.
I would, because, I mean, it's almost like watching a throwback. They're just, like, making a pastiche version of Friday the 13th. In fact, I wish that they would have just called it a reboot and have continued going on making other Friday the 13th movies with it.
Now, if you had to choose... If you were going to introduce someone to the lore and the mythology that is Friday the 13th, would you show them this film or would you show them the original?
No, I would show them the original.
Same with me. I wouldn't show them this Halloween. I can recommend it, but I would, any day, I would tell them to watch the original Halloween with Jamie Lee Curtis.
Oh, yeah, of course. I mean, I enjoyed Rob Zombie's version, and, I mean, but it's a little graphic in places.
Number 9. I chose Piranha 3D, a remake of Piranha.
I also love that remake, but I cannot not giggle when I think about it.
It's just a fun movie.
It is great.
Yeah, it's got so many references, and it's just fun to watch. And it's it's a little naughty, but I mean it's good.
I think it's more than a little naughty.
And it's got one of the best like crowd horror scenes I think ever made. And as soon as like the piranhas make their way like to the main beach area, and it's just a mad rush of hundreds of extras to get out of the water, and it is just scary and exciting and actually hilarious. And there's like this one scene with a boat that like gets caught in this chick's hair. Like everyone's like rushing the boats to try and get in away from the water, away from the piranhas that are eating everyone's flesh off. But there's almost equal massacre with everyone just like running each other over on the boats and like drowning each other to get on the stuff. And this lady's hair gets stuck in a boat propeller, and it's horrifying. But at the same time, it's actually filmed with such like tongue-in-cheek weirdness that it's hilarious.
I mean, I completely agree. I know the director of that movie has made some fantastic films on his own, and he's made another remake.
I don't know the director. Like, what is
Alexandre Aja. He's a French director. He made a movie High Tension, and he also made a remake of this movie called The Hills Have Eyes.
I have never seen High Tension, and I have seen the remake of The Hills Have Eyes.
And he is not afraid of some blood.
I never saw the original. Oh, I only saw the remake of The Hills Have Eyes.
Well, we're going to rectify that.
And I thought it was... There's a burning sequence with the guy that's burned in the Hills Have Eyes remake is the same guy that plays the Buffalo Bill in Silence of the Lambs.
He was just in a movie that I saw, too. That's off topic. My number 9 movie is the remake of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, starring Jessica Biel. I like this movie because, again, similar to Friday the 13th, it gave you some feelings of the original movie.
Did the original have Matthew McConaughey?
No, that was a really awesome 90s version called, like, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the Next Generation or something. It also has Renee Zellweger in
I haven't
movie.
seen any of them except for this remake. I saw it in the theater, I think, the early thousands?
Yeah, I mean, it was like 2004 or 2007, somewhere in that particular area.
And I just wasn't that into it. I just couldn't get into that.
I liked it. I mean, like, it really kept some of the pacing of the original movie. It kept me on the edge of my seat, and I kept expecting it to be as shocking as the original was, and I think it went a little further, because in subsequent watching of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the original, it's not nearly as gory as we all remember it to be.
Maybe it's something that you can only truly, fully appreciate if you've seen the original.
I think that's probably true. I think this is one of those comparison films.
What's interesting to me about the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, at least from what I remember from having read and researched about it a little bit, is that Psycho and the Texas Chainsaw Massacre are both based off of the same murderer.
Yeah, they're all based on Ed Gein. And so is Buffalo Bill from The Silence of the Lambs. Is that what you just said? I'm sorry.
No.
Yeah, so
Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Psycho, and Buffalo Bill from Silence of the Lambs
they're
were
all
at least
based on
partially
Ed
based
Gein.
on. Wow.
Because he used to skin his victims and make like costumes out of them. He made a belt with nipples on it.
What?
I don't know why I know this, ladies and gentlemen.
Okay, well, my number 8 is Willard. I never saw the original, but this one's actually pretty fun. And I might actually show my friend Diane Willard later on as a bonus content because she hates rats.
Run away, Diane.
And this movie is rife with rats.
Is it Crispin Glover in this movie?
Yes, in all of his ratty weirdness.
That's right. Oh my god, he is like a rat. I also like this remake. And I've seen the original. The original is really good too. But my number 8 is The Blob. This is from like the late 80s.
I've seen so many clips from this, and I think I saw it as a kid, and I never saw it.
I definitely saw it as a kid because we had like HBO.
I did see the original. Was it in the 50s?
Yes.
The 50s movie? I think I saw the original.
Yeah, it's an old black and white movie, and this is just something that just takes the very essence of the original movie and really builds on it in a way that only the 80s could.
What's funny is Alamo Drafthouse uses a clip from it in the movie theater, where the blobs on the ceiling or whatever, or like in the back row or something, and the kids are like talking during the movie, and then the blob eats them, and it's like, don't talk during the movie or the blob gets you.
That's true. There's a wonderful scene in both the original and the remake where the blob just literally takes over everybody in a movie theater, and for a young child when I was watching it of like 7 or 8, it's pretty frightening.
Mm-hmm. My number 7, Quarantine, a remake of Rec, Spanish language film.
Oh, which one do you like better?
There's good and bad on both, and bad I use very, very lightly because I loved both.
Yeah, I did too.
And I'd really want to see it again for both, but I feel like Quarantine might have been a little bit creepier with the camera work. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean, it was really, really found footage. I mean, both are. And
they're almost shot for shot.
Yeah, it's very similar. Just the American one seems so much shakier to me. And so I saw that movie. I saw the remake in the theater. And by the time that I had left, I felt so sick to my stomach because the camera was so shaky that it just added so much to that movie for me.
Yeah, I feel like Quarantine may be a little less shaky. Maybe I'm remembering that wrong. They're kind of interchangeable. If you are one of those people that really gets into foreign language films, like a little bit more transported, then watch Rec. You know, if you really don't prefer to read subtitles, then watch Quarantine. They're both, I would say, nearly equals. It's been a while since I've seen them, so I could be wrong in my memory of which one's better or not, but I feel like they're fairly close.
Well, anybody who listens to our podcast knows that we like to find the hottest guys in movies. And Quarantine, ladies and gentlemen, has several really hot guys in it.
Well, one of my favorite horror actresses, that's only been a couple horror movies actually, was but she was on Dexter as Dexter's sister. Mm-hmm. And I've forgotten her name. But she was also in The Exorcism of Emily Rose, and she was amazing in that film.
That's right. And, I mean, one of my favorite horror actors, this is the guy from Hostel, is in Rec. He's like the male lead.
What's your number 7?
My number 7 is Don't Be Afraid of the Dark. It's a remake of a 1970s made-for-television movie, but this remake was produced by Guillermo del Toro, and he brings to it only the most gothic aspect that he can bring to horror movies. This is one of those situations where I think that the producer really put on his director hat a lot, similar to Spielberg and the Poltergeist, because watching Don't Be Afraid of the Dark is just like watching a Guillermo del Toro movie. It's all about this small girl who comes to live with her father, and there are these small creatures that live in the basement, and they're whispering to her like, "Oh my God, it's Sally, we're coming to get her." And these creatures come out of their hole like once every so often to eat children's teeth.
Jesus.
Yeah, it's good.
My number 6 is The Grudge, remake of Ju-on.
Oh my fucking God, Chris. You have to tell me right now which one you like better. And if you say you have not seen Ju-on, I'm going to come across this table and slap
I've
you.
seen Ju-on, but I almost want to say, I mean, it's the same director. He literally just remade his own film.
I know.
In English. And I want to say Ju-on has that energy that The Grudge just doesn't. And it has kind of an organic quality to it that just seems more in the moment. But I really like The Grudge.
I do too. Honestly, it almost made the list. I mean, like, it was really got down between Friday the 13th and The Grudge.
Yeah, and nothing so far on my list is necessarily better than the original.
Yeah, I know. I mean, it's just, I mean, there's a question that you always have to ask yourself after you've seen a movie like that. It's, I mean, if you've seen the original. The Grudge itself is, I mean, it's a well-made movie. It's a great remake because it is essentially the exact same movie.
And it's also, there's another part of it where the main actress, the main character, is surrounded by a foreign country. That aspect of it wasn't really in the original.
Nope, you're right.
And so it adds another level of claustrophobia, agoraphobia type of situation.
Not to mention, I mean, I think that we both love that actress a lot. Don't we? I mean,
Sarah
Michelle
Gellar.
Come on.
Oh, Buffy.
Little Miss Summers. Mm-hmm. My number 6 movie is Invasion of the Body Snatchers. It's another remake of a 1950s sci-fi classic.
No, I have seen this, and just seeing Donald Sutherland, like, look into the camera and go,
I know. Pointing, mouth agape. I know. This is one of these situations, one of the rare situations that I think that the remake is far superior than the original version.
Yeah, we're getting to that point on our list where that's going to start.
I mean, they sort of have to be.
Mm-hmm. Number 5. My number 5 is The Ring, a remake of Ringu.
Another Japanese movie right next to each other?
Yeah, well, I really liked The Ring. I loved it when it came out. Hans Zimmer's score is beautiful, haunting. The look of it was just so well done. The acting was great. I mean, just everything was working for it. I still love that film. I don't love the sequel as much, but this film has a special place in my heart. I love it.
I completely agree. I mean, just that film was so good tonally. Like, the entire movie just seemed to be set in the rain. Like, everything was so dark and cloudy, and
it just works so well. The atmosphere for everything that they did, and I feel like I'm gonna get some hate mail for this, but I feel like it works better in the American version.
And if we're gonna get some hate mail, it's gonna be double, because I completely agree with you. I would rather watch The Ring than Ringu.
Awesome.
My number 5 is The Fly, David Cronenberg's 1980s remake of yet another 1950s sci-fi classic.
Nice.
This movie is just fucking nasty.
And the original is a classic, but I feel like this movie's better.
I completely agree. I think Cronenberg did what he does best and just give us some body horror to the nth degree. I think it is his best horror movie, and I mean, every time I watch it, I just want to fucking vomit.
Now, is this Goldblum's only horror movie and Gina Davis's only horror movie?
Well, unless you count Jurassic Park as a horror movie. I do.
Maybe slightly been diagrammed in. We like to do that.
Perhaps a different discussion.
Yeah. Number 4, The Crazies, I never saw the original, and I didn't really get into the marketing or really hear about it when it was coming out. But the Crazies really, really, really impressed me, and I want to watch it again. I watched it twice. I had to show someone right after I saw it, because it was just, I just wasn't expecting it to be that good. I wasn't expecting it to also, usually horror movies are kind of relegated to their locale or their little, blip on the radar as far as what's happening in this little bubble, right? But the Crazies is one of those that starts that way, and it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. You start in this little small town, and that's where all the main characters are, and you get to the point where there's government involved on a massive scale to deal with this. And it's just a really well done, surprising movie. And I would totally recommend The Crazies to anyone that wants to see almost like a horror disaster movie.
It is good. And I mean, we're getting on dangerous territory for me at this point, because George A. Romero is my favorite horror director. And he directed the original Crazies, which I think is, a great movie. And I went to go see the remake in the theater, and I was expecting to hate it just because, I was...
And so part of the reason I probably like it so much is because I never saw the original.
But no, the remake is fantastic. I was not going to go in that direction. I agree with you. I think it's a good movie.
Didn't make your list.
No, it didn't. However, I think Josh Duhamel's in that movie, and he's cute too. My number 4 movie is The Evil Dead. And we're talking The Evil Dead that came out just, 5 or 6 years ago.
Yeah, the remake of Evil Dead from Sam Raimi.
Right. And just another movie that took the original premise and just way off into left field with it, and just made it the most terrorizing movie to watch. I know most people aren't a fan of the torture porn environment in horror movies or that particular subgenre, and this one sort of teeters on that for me. But I just thought that it was great. I was completely scared watching this movie from start to finish, and I wasn't that scared watching the original.
Yeah, okay. Well, the original was pretty scary when it first came out, I would say. And of course, we'll get into more of that later. But I watched the remake, and I loved the trailer. The trailer was just, I loved showing it to people, and I was just like, we have to watch this. It was so amazing. The trailer, to me, ended up being better than the film.
No. Wah wah.
It ended up going a little batshit crazy at the end, which was, obviously a gesture, at least thematically, at least to Sam Raimi.
Right.
But, and Sam Raimi actually, I believe, produced it, or at least put a seal of approval.
Oh, he did, yeah. He produced the movie, and
But he had just made, very soon before that, Drag Me to Hell. And it's like, just give the keys to Sam Raimi. Just give him the keys.
Well, I think that Drag Me to Hell is sort of similar to what he would have made. This movie is way different than what he would have done.
Well, what I'm saying is Sam Raimi, was obviously still in his prime movie making. I would say Drag Me to Hell is easy classic, modern classic.
It was much better than his run on Spider-Man. Just say that.
Well, at least the third Spider-Man.
Number 3.
My number 3 is The Fly, which we've already talked about it, because The Fly was number 5 on your list. But I'm saying it's the top 3 because it's just so good. It's just so, from beginning to end, just great. And it's just so entertaining. And to me, it's kind of gross, but it's not super scary. It's just really interesting to me. It's just super entertaining and interesting the entire way through. And you care about the characters, less and less so for the main guy, for Goldblum. But, it's just, to me, it's just, for as far as remakes go, it's you really need to look at what they did at The Fly. They didn't make a shot for shot. They did something different. And the ones that try and do that, they tend to be the most successful. They build on and do their own thing.
I completely agree, which is why I put it before The Evil Dead.
Okay, so what's your number 3?
My number 3 is Bram Stoker's Dracula.
I don't think that's a remake.
Of course it's a remake.
It's not a remake.
There was a movie called Dracula, and it's the exact same story.
Well, I would argue that there was never a movie really based off of the book, that closely.
No, not that closely.
And they're all based on the book. Loosely. But I mean,
in a sense that there are like
others.
characters with the same names.
But I really cannot say like this is like a Bela Lugosi like try to be or something.
No,
This
but
is totally
I think that Coppola tried to make a movie in the same ilk as the original Dracula. He was going for a more atmospheric quality.
Sure, and he was really trying to make like I really want to do this movie as an episode. I could talk all day about Bram Stoker's Dracula and what Francis Ford Coppola was trying to do. And all the actors and everything in it. I love Bram Stoker's Dracula. I bought it on every model. I had it on Laserdisc and VHS and DVD and several different Blu-rays and now 4K. I love this movie. I cannot stop talking about every aspect of this movie. From the music to the
But you cannot
cinematography,
watch
acting,
this
to the
movie
directing.
and think that Francis Ford Coppola did not get his inspiration from these Universal monster films.
I'm sure.
And he was just trying to make his own. It's like his own love letter to that particular genre of horror.
I just look back at those other movies. I just cannot think of him. I think of him trying to do his own thing from the book. I don't think of him specifically going out to remake another person's film. I just don't think that's true. But I see your point. I completely see your point, and I respect it.
Well, thank you. And that's all that I asked for in this top 10 list, really. I mean, because, we may have some conversations about
Don't
you on later
belittle my favorite movie. It's not my favorite movie. It's not my favorite horror movie, probably, but it's definitely quite high up there on my list on movies in general.
Perhaps at some point we'll both sit down and we'll watch Dracula from 1900 or wherever it came out, and then we'll watch Bram Stoker's Dracula and do a comparison.
Sure. I think Nosferatu is really like the first.
Oh, I love that movie.
The first one that kind of tried, but they couldn't get the rights to the book, so they named it their own. Mm-hmm. Anyway, my number 2 is The Evil Dead 2.
See, and this is where I would say, is that really a remake?
It's as much of a remake as it is a sequel, because it really doesn't fit in with the actual mythology or like narrative flow from the first movie. It's like an impossible sequel, right?
Yeah, but the director calls it a sequel.
He does in the title. But it's really like the more you talk, like the more you research it, the more you listen to it, like the more you watch it, the more you see like how Sam Raimi referred to it and Bruce Campbell and everyone. It was basically what they wanted to do the first time around, but with a lot more humor. And so it's almost just like it's they wanted to do the same thing, but through the lens of horror comedy, and it's just amazing. And I would say it's better. I'm one of those people that actually says it's better than the original.
I completely agree with
you. And
it
really is. Even in the reviews, they said this is as much a remake as it is a sequel, and it's wonderful.
I think, we can say that they would like to do it in the lens of horror comedy. I think that they just wanted to make the same movie with a bigger budget.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I get it. I know why you would call it a sequel or a remake, but
Well, Sam Raimi's the cast and crew, they've all even referred to it kind of half-jokingly as a remake.
Yeah.
Which is more than you can say for Bram Stoker's Dracula.
I don't know. I think if we looked up Coppola, we would just have to see what he has to say about it. However, Evil Dead 2 is far superior than Evil Dead 1. I will give you that every fucking day of the week.
So what is your number 2?
My number 2 movie is Dawn of the Dead.
Blech.
Oh, I should just kick you right now.
The best thing to come out of that movie is Richard Cheese's cover of
Down with the Sickness.
Down with the Sickness.
Dawn of the Dead is one of my favorite horror movies. It is not my favorite. The
original or the remake?
The original.
The original Dawn of the Dead
is one of my favorite movies of all time.
Is one of my favorite movies of all time as well. You just can't beat it. And any kind of remake, it just like cheapens it to me. And it was well done. This is Snyder, Zack Snyder.
Zack Snyder.
Before the days of 300.
But what he did was he took a movie and he made something entirely different. He made it for a different audience. He took the basic bare bones of it and he created just a fantastic movie.
Yeah, it was good. It's just the end just collapsed it all for me. Everyone, like half the cast that I cared about was just killed so like recreationally.
Well, they all have to die at some point. There's a horde of zombies out
It's just like it was taken so well. It was so intricately made with the mood and the pacing, and the end just like it's like they got bored.
The pacing in this movie is fucking like breakneck from start to finish.
They didn't know how to end it.
It's like you wake up and there's some zombie girl in your room, and from the minute that woman has to run for her life, there's hardly any time to stop. He took a movie that had like 4 characters in it, and he expanded that universe into something huge.
And there's baby horror.
Single-handedly created like a fast zombie generation along with 28 Days Later.
28 Days Later came out a few years before.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, like, these movies came out and it just totally turned the zombie thing on its head.
Yeah, 28 Days Later, I'd say, brought the zombie genre back.
And it takes a lot for me to say that a movie that's remade of something that I completely love could even come close to it. But I don't even compare them anymore. To me, they are two separate movies. I love them equally. I love one more than the other. But I think that as far as remakes go, it's tops.
Yeah. I get it.
You got it.
Well, we share, and we created these lists separately. We should have you know, we didn't collaborate at all on these lists. But we wanted to do them separately so that we'd have kind of a genuine response to each other's lists on, you know, while we record. And so we both actually ended up with the same number one film, which is John Carpenter's The Thing. I've seen the original, and it's just completely different.
Yeah.
They're both kind of based off of the same, like, story, which I believe is called, like, The Watcher in the Wild.
When you talk about the literary story that it's based on?
Yeah, what is it called?
I don't know. I know the movie that it's based on is called The Thing from Another Planet or something.
The Thing from
like
Outer
that.
Space.
Yeah, something like that.
But yeah, I don't have my notes with me, stupidly. But yeah, The Thing was based off of originally kind of a story. And anyone can look it up. It's right there in the wiki, I think.
Just Google it.
Just Google it. I'm lazy and I don't.
Or maybe we'll just put
shit.
some show notes on here.
Yeah. So anyway, The Thing. Man, this was so good.
My God.
The score is so simple. Like the look is just great. The acting, the pacing.
The pacing of this movie is to die for.
Yeah. I mean, it's so tense and it builds so expertly. Like you almost want to believe that they just like accidentally stumbled on this in the editing room where it was just so smooth. If I wanted to like teach film students one of the best, like a masterclass in film pacing, like look at The Thing.
I mean, he creates suspense like just masterfully. It's amazing. And I know that it could not have been happenstance or an accident. One of my favorite things to do when I watch The Thing is to watch the director commentary with John Carpenter and Kurt Russell, because the two of them spend more time like joking back and forth with each other about the making of the movie. You could hear the ice in their whiskeys rattling as they talk. And they both enjoyed making this movie so much. I think the two of them sort of look back on it as maybe a crowning achievement. I know that John Carpenter has done amazing things for horror, you know, starting slasher genres and things like that, but The Thing is a fantastic movie from start to finish.
And it did not get good reviews when it came out, and no one went to see it.
And I don't understand how that's fucking possible.
I know, I stumbled upon this later. Like, I saw parts of it earlier in my life, and I stumbled upon this, like, later as an adult. And I watched it, and I was blown away. I mean, the effects alone, even today, are better than the stupid remake that came out.
I was gonna say, should we get a little meta on here and talk about the remake of the remake of the remake? What a terrible movie.
Now, I've heard people that really like the remake, and I get it. There's parts of it that are good and stuff, but it's just, for me, I was looking for that super realistic and jarring body horror, like from this. I almost said the original because this is technically a remake.
Yeah, I mean, to me it feels like the original.
But this is the 1982 John Carpenter's The Thing, and it is the best horror remake of all time, in both of our opinions.
I'm going to tell you a secret that I just discovered this week, and I don't want you to be mad at me. When I made this list, I wanted to go and rewatch some of these movies. So I watched Dawn of the Dead, I watched The Fly again, I watched Friday the 13th again, and I was going through my DVDs, and I didn't have the case for it, and I was like, oh, I have The Thing. So I popped it into the DVD player, and it is not John Carpenter's The Thing. It's the remake of the remake of the remake. So I own the shitty version. I don't even know how in the world I paid for this movie, but I have it for fucking ever. But I do not have John Carpenter's version. And I'm so ashamed.
Get out.
I know, I have to.
Ugh, I've bought several versions of this film, and
Well, if you want the remake of the remake of the remake...
Even the shitty claymation at the end.
I love practical effects.
Oh no, I love the in-camera... All the effects, all the creature effects in this movie were in-camera effects, and they're amazing achievements I've never seen since. CGI kind of comes close, but the remix, from the thing that just came out, like, in whatever it was. But this is crappy CGI, comparatively. I mean, to the in-camera effects here.
They can keep it.
Yeah, so... The only effect I didn't really like was, of course, the end claymation, big bad, but even still, it shows so little of it.
Well, I can see Wilford Brimley's face in there squarely.
Yeah.
Diabetes.
And that's all you need.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that was... Oh, my God, wait.
We are not done.
What are you talking about? That was our number one movie, Chris.
I have a special mention.
A special mention?
I have a special mention for Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Well, I was about to say that you cannot have a special mention because that's like cheating, but I'm going to give you this one.
It's an honorary. You bet your ass you are.
Yeah.
It's an honorary member on this list just because, even though it's a TV show, it's technically a remake of the movie that was, pseudo pretty crappy. And,
I love it.
Yeah, but you love it in a crappy way.
Yeah, that's true.
You love to hate it. We hate to love it. Things like that. But the show... I love the show. I love the show so much.
I love it too. I love it very much. I love every single thing about it. But it's not a movie.
I know. Which is why it's a special mention. It doesn't have a number.
That's true.
But I have to give it the time of day.
Perhaps we can have a top 10 episodes of Buffy list in the future. I could definitely do that. I've seen this movie. See, I almost called it a movie. Maybe it has to be on the damn list. I've seen this show, like, from start to finish so many times. It's ridiculous.
All right. Well, thanks, guys, for supporting us and listening to our very first bonus content episode.
Yay, bonus content. Join us next month when we'll do another top 10 list. If you have any ideas on what we should do, just shoot us an email at what email address, Chris?
I believe it's tiredqueens@filmflamers.com.
Or you could find us on Facebook or Twitter at The Film Flamers. Sweet dreams.